Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely, and parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/Wondery.
Bombas makes the most comfortable socks, underwear, and T-shirts.
Warning, Bombas are so absurdly comfortable you may throw out all your other clothes.
Sorry, do we legally have to say that?
No, this is just how I talk, and I really love my Bombas.
They do feel that good. And they do good, too. One item purchased equals one item donated.
To feel good and do good, go to bombas.com/Wondery and use code WONDERY for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/Wondery and use code WONDERY at checkout.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
The Prosecutors is brought to you by Progressive. Progressive helps you compare direct auto rates from a variety of companies so you can find a great one, even if it's not with them. Quote today at Progressive.com to find a rate that works with your budget. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations.
Alice, we've got a very different kind of sponsor for this episode, the Jordan Harbinger Show, which is a podcast you really should be listening to. And I know that every day somebody tells you that you just have to listen to some podcast, and you nod and say sure, and then you never listen to it. Don't let that happen here. Jordan's show, which Apple named one of its best of 2018, is aimed at making you a better informed, more critical thinker, so you can get a sense of how the world actually works and come to your own conclusions about what's happening even inside your own brain. Each episode is a conversation with a different fascinating guest, and when I say there's something for everyone here, I really mean that. In one episode, Jordan talks to a hostage negotiator from the FBI who offers techniques on how to get people to like and trust you, which sounds useful and disturbing at the same time.
And for all of our wonderful true crime fans, Jordan also has a true crime starter pack. You can go listen to the episode with Billy McFarland, where he goes from the Fire Fest fiasco to federal prison, and so many more that fit the true crime genre. Jordan's always focused on pulling useful, practical insights out of his brilliant guests, and we're not talking about pop psychology or wishy-washy self-help stuff here. The episodes are loaded with bits of wisdom that you can use to legitimately change your mind and improve your life right away. We really enjoy this show, and we think you will as well. Search for The Jordan Harbinger Show. That's HARB as in boy, IN as in Nancy, GER on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hello, everyone. This is Mike.
And this is Gibby.
And we're the hosts of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. If you haven't already, we'd love to invite you to come check us out. Starting in January of 2017, we've amassed over 230 episodes of some of the most intriguing unsolved cases in true crime history. We cover some of the very big unsolved cases, but we also like to cover some of the lesser known cases, some that you may have never heard of. We dive into the details. We talk about the victims, their life, the circumstances around their disappearance or murder, and we cover the potential suspects and persons of interest. We try to give you all the known facts you need to satisfy your amateur detective. We like to think that we don't take ourselves all that seriously, but we take true crime very seriously. You can listen to True Crime All the Time Unsolved now on Podcast One, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You know you want to.
I'm Brett.
And I'm Alice.
And we are the Prosecutors. Today on The Prosecutors, we look at what made Caylee Anthony tick. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of The Prosecutors. I'm Brett, and I'm joined, as always, by my voluble co-host, Alice.
Hi, Brett. It's so good to hear from you. You've been sick, and I've missed you at work. And I'm not exactly sure what voluble means, but I feel like it's something that I would say to my kids all the time because it sounds like you've turned the volume up.
I think it means you talk a lot, so...
That is also
I think that's a
applicable to my
compliment
kids.
for podcasts. It might not normally be a compliment, but since you're a co-host of a podcast, it is. And yes, I've been sick, but I'm on the road to recovery. But forgive me if my voice is a little scratchier than normal, you know.
I think the ladies love
sexy,
it.
been smoking. Right, exactly. Exactly. So we'll go with that.
Yes, indeed. Well, did you get my joke on the voluble, though? Like volume? Voluble?
I did. I think that is probably volume and voluble derived from the same Latin phrase or something. I don't know.
Probably. But enough about me. Brett, we've already started releasing the Caylee Anthony episodes while we're in the midst of recording them. And it's always so interesting because we have the best listeners who pick up on such interesting points. And I love hearing about it in real time as we're recording because it does kind of shape my thinking. And I think I've thought of everything, but clearly that's never the case. So I need to stop thinking that. And some of the things I really want to explore today is more about who Caylee was. We spent a lot of time in the first episode talking about her kind of just unabashed big lies, right? Big with a capital B, and what that means about the type of person she is, and also what that could say about her as a mother, not just as a young woman who speaks in these tall tales.
Yeah, Alice, one of the benefits of doing these really long series like this one, which is going to be at least 6 episodes, we'll see if it doesn't bleed over into a few more, is we do start hearing feedback even as we're doing them. So you guys seem like you're excited about this, you're enjoying it so far, and we're excited about talking more about what is really an interesting aspect of this case. We talked about this in one of our earlier episodes, that this is a case where behavior and mindsets and what was going on in Caylee's mind is really important because of the evidence we're going to look at later on. We're going to talk about her mindset first. We're going to save the hard evidence for later. We're going to talk about her mindset, sort of get into her head a little bit, and then look at the evidence and see how everything matches up. So this is a little different than how we normally do it. We don't normally spend this much time on the psychology of the person involved, but in this case in particular, it seems important.
Yeah, and let's talk about we've heard about the way Caylee acted after Caylee was last seen. We've heard about these grand tall tales she tells as easily as she seems to breathe air. But who was Caylee as a mother? We know that Caylee became pregnant with Caylee when she was only 18 years old. Despite the obvious, not reporting her daughter missing for 31 days, most people who knew Caylee while Caylee was alive described Caylee as a good and loving mother. Caylee would not allow anyone to smoke or drink around her daughter, and she was never accused of abusing Caylee, which is not to say that Caylee necessarily wanted to be a mother. When she was pregnant, she told friends she wasn't ready to be a mother and considered putting Caylee up for adoption. And that doesn't really surprise me. Getting pregnant at 18, it wasn't something that Caylee planned to do. In fact, no one even knows who Caylee's father is. Caylee never told anyone. It's not clear if she knows who it is, but if she does, she's never told anyone. Now, 3 men have been named as potential candidates, but bizarrely, all 3 men died in car accidents. So Caylee was really completely by herself, even when she was pregnant. And she knew what was facing her. If she was to keep Caylee, she knew she would be raising this child by herself. And she may have wanted to raise Caylee by herself if she was going to keep Caylee. And that may have been the reason why she didn't tell anyone who the father was, or maybe didn't tell the father that she had gotten pregnant by him.
And that's one reason that her parents became so involved in all this, right? I mean, Casey, she's 18 years old. Casey never actually graduated from high school. And this is another sort of interesting, unusual aspect of the bizarre relationship between Casey and her parents. So there's a lot of weird things about Casey. If you guys are really interested in sort of a really deep dive into her family and her weirdness, if you listen to Crime Weekly, which is a really good podcast, they covered this case and they spent hours on what we're going to talk about in this episode. And they go over a lot of really strange things that happened and sort of shaped Casey and who she is. You may wonder, why does Casey lie so much? Well, evidently she learned it from her parents. She was supposed to graduate from high school. She was known as a very good student, very conscientious, not much of a partier, not somebody who got drunk, all those things. Then, towards the end of high school, something changed. A little unclear why, nobody really knows. She started not being a good student. She started not being so conscientious. She started to party more and to drink more. She became pregnant at some point, and she wasn't going to graduate because she didn't have enough credits to graduate. And her high school told her this. Her parents knew about that. But rather than tell the rest of her family, her parents and Casey just went along as if this was going to happen. So Casey gets a bunch of graduation presents. They don't turn those away. They go down to the graduation ceremony. Her grandparents are there, and they're really confused when Casey's name's never called. And her parents are like, oh, this is just some mistake. The school really screwed this up. How terrible. Well, we'll just celebrate her afterwards. And so they have a big celebration for Casey afterwards, as if she had graduated. But in fact, she had not. And we talked about her pregnancy earlier and how her parents were in denial. And apparently Casey was too. If you believe Casey, this was a virgin birth. She had never had sex, and yet she was pregnant. Obviously, that's not what happened. At some point, this comes out that it's probably one of these three men, though all of them are dead. There's been a lot of salacious speculation online that maybe this is her brother's daughter or her father's daughter, based on theories of abuse. That is not the case. There was DNA testing done that ruled that out. But nevertheless, we don't know who the father is, like Alice said. And it's true that Casey thought about putting her daughter up for adoption, but Cindy, her mother, put her foot down and said, that's not going to happen. You're going to have this baby, and we are going to raise her together. And her mother, very early on, showed a real possessive interest in Caylee. Caylee was her granddaughter, but she would call her her daughter, her little girl. She would use terms that made you think it was her daughter, not her granddaughter. She was the first person to ever hold Caylee. As soon as Caylee was born, she took her and she held her. And Casey, I think, made some quip about, I don't even get to hold my own daughter. But that was the kind of relationship they had. In a lot of ways, Cindy saw herself as sort of a co-mother with Casey, not as a grandmother. And that fact led to a lot of boundaries that weren't very strong and some real weirdness in this family. And I think may have led to some of the tensions that eventually led to what happened to Caylee. But what can't be denied is that everyone who testified, and you can see this if you watch the trial, a lot of Casey's friends would testify because her behavior and her actions in the days and the weeks after Caylee went missing were important, and the prosecution wanted to get that out. So on cross-examination, the defense used that as an opportunity to ask about Caylee and how Casey treated her. And unanimously, everyone said she loved that little girl. She treated her like gold. She was a great mother. That was the universal opinion of everyone who testified about Casey. And this has led to some real doubt in a lot of people's minds about whether or not this person who's described as such a loving mother could have killed her child. And you see this in a lot of the other cases we've looked at, where people, if they think someone's guilty, they want to set them up as abusing their child or full of rage towards their child. And if they think they're not guilty, they want to point to this about how much they love their child. And is that important? I think it is. I think it's something that you can point to. particularly when you have something that seems to happen just out of the blue. As we've said before, we talked about in the Ramsey case, you don't just start abusing children. Some of the sexual abuse that happened to John Bonet at the end of her life was some very vicious stuff. And it's not the kind of thing that you never abused a child and the next day you're doing that kind of stuff. Usually the same thing can be said for abusive parents. Parents who kill their kids, a lot of times there is a run-up to it. But that's not necessarily the case. Hasn't stopped people from arguing that because Casey appeared to be a good mother who loved her daughter, that she couldn't have killed her. And maybe that's true. But I think it's worth remembering a couple things. And the first one is important. Casey wasn't taking care of her daughter full time. She was a mother, yes, but in many ways, she was an absentee mother. Her parents were taking care of Caylee. They were the ones who financially supported them. Remember, Casey doesn't even have a job, so she's getting money from her parents. She's stealing money from her grandparents. She's stealing money from her best friend, Amy Huizinga. That's one of the reasons that she had her bail revoked, is because they realized she'd been stealing checks from her. But she's getting a lot of financial support from her parents. And it's possible that Casey did love her daughter as long as she wasn't a burden on her. As long as it was an easy thing, she loved her to death. But as soon as it became a burden, then things changed.
And this is pretty consistent, Brett, because, she's still very young. She's, 19 when Caylee is born. And, she was having a lot of fun before she got pregnant, before she had a baby. And it would be difficult for any 19-year-old to take on the responsibilities of a baby, a child. And you can imagine that Casey maybe even wanted, had an ideal of how she wanted to act. But the realities are, this is just a lot to take on in terms of responsibility at a young age for anybody, but especially for someone like Casey, who really loved the life she led before. And then conveniently, here she is in an environment where her parents are really just loving her daughter and wanting to step in and care for them financially, care for them with time. And she may not have felt any guilt about not being kind of full-time mom. So this is all helpful to know in terms of the family dynamic and what Casey was facing on a day-to-day basis. But, she was very lucky to have such supportive parents, but it probably helped the stress level for her so that those around Casey at all times saw her as just a loving mother, because she didn't have to carry all the burdens that come with being a teen mother for a lot of people in this country.
Yeah, and as we talk about this more, I think that situation, that dynamic is going to become more and more important, and that sort of leads us into the second thing about this. I mean, Casey was young, and this was a large burden on her, and it was taking up more and more time. Those of you who had kids, you know this. You have a baby, and you think it's a ton of work when you have a baby. Those first 6 months, though, you got to feed them a lot, but otherwise, they're pretty easy. They just kind of lay there and sleep. You change diapers, and they want a bottle, and you feed them. But at some point, they become toddlers, and then all of a sudden, they're taking up a ton of your time. And the bigger they get, the more attention they need. Remember, Caylee she's almost 3 when she disappears. And she was maybe 9 months, 2 years and 9 months, maybe. Sometime around there. And I can tell you, having a daughter that age, she's a lot of work. I love her to death, but man, she is a lot of work. And she certainly isn't consistent with a partying lifestyle. And Casey had a new boyfriend, and she was spending more and more time with him. He was a party planner. We talked about that hard body contest, and that is what it was called. Somebody said, was it a hot body contest? I was like, no, it was a hard body contest. It is a hot body contest, but that's just what they called it. But in any event, that's the kind of stuff he was doing. He was a party planner. He's going around to the clubs. He's working with shot girls, who are these very attractive women in very scanty clothing, going around the bars, pouring shots down the throats of young men who are eager to buy more shots from them. You can see how this business works. And I just got to guess, if I'm Casey, I'd like to be around my boyfriend while he's working with the shot girls, just to make sure that nothing happens. And she was very involved in his business and was going to more and more of these clubs to work with him. She would not be the first person to decide that her child had become a burden that she just couldn't handle. And it's possible that Casey viewed Caylee as little more than a plaything. And she was great when she didn't have this boyfriend, but now that she did, maybe she's something that can be discarded when she no longer had any value to her. And in fact, there is evidence that supports this. According to Casey's good friend, Amy Huizinga, who I think can best be described as her best friend, the day that Caylee went missing, she was on the phone with Amy for quite some time. According to Amy, during the months and weeks leading up to Caylee's disappearance, Casey had complained that Caylee was becoming a burden. She had repeatedly had to cancel going out with her friends because Cindy could not keep Caylee, and Casey didn't have any other child care. Zanny wasn't real, remember? So Casey was having to stay with her daughter as Cindy, I guess, tried to put up a few boundaries. A few, you need to take care of your daughter, or maybe it was just becoming too much for her. But whatever the case, it was beginning to have a real effect on Casey's life in a way that had never been before. And I think there's another important thing to talk about here. There is this assumption that because Casey appeared outwardly to love her daughter, that means that she did in fact love her. And I think that is an assumption that is flawed. Casey is a liar of the highest order, compulsively, to her core. She lies about everything. In the run-up to this, she was telling Amy that her parents were going to move out of their house and give it to Casey, and then Casey and Amy were going to move in together. Amy's forwarding her mail to the house. And Casey's parents are like, why are we getting Amy Huizinga's mail? Because Amy thought she was moving into the house. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that Casey is doing. The stories of Casey's lies are just incredible, and they are limitless. We could literally spend 10 episodes just talking about Casey's lies. She lied all the time. And if there was anybody who could appear to feel a certain way and not really feel that way, it's Casey. Everything, and this is important to remember, everything about Casey's life is a lie. And many of those lies are designed to seek the approval, attention, and support of others, including her parents. And appearing to love Caylee was incredibly valuable to Casey. Caylee was the most valuable commodity that Casey had. She was the meal ticket. She was everything. And it's possible that Casey just knew she needed to put on a good show.
And that's a great point, Brett, because at the time that Caylee was born, Casey was still at an age that a lot of people are still at home, 18, 19. And you can imagine that Cindy and George are thinking, okay, their daughter has kind of been caught in a tough situation, but she's still young. Let's help her get on her feet. But after 3 years' time has passed, and they see that instead of Casey getting more mature, taking on more responsibility, rising to the occasion of becoming a teen mother, she's actually going the other way. She seems to get less responsible with time and pushing off more responsibility onto her parents. And so perhaps what they were hoping for was, let's bridge her. We love our daughter. We love our granddaughter. We'll bridge her because she's still a young mother. But as time goes on, she'll get the hang of this. She will learn how to be a mother, and she'll grow and mature into the mother that we'd like her to be. But as you can see, Casey had this kind of trajectory going in the opposite direction. She's partying more. She wants to go out with friends. She wants to move in with a girlfriend. She has a new boyfriend that she's going to see. And more she's wanting to leave Caylee behind with Cindy in order for her to go live her fun life with no kind of regard for her young daughter's childcare. And so this is kind of all coming to a head at the same time. 3 years is a good runway to kind of get your feet under you, but that's not what Casey's doing. And furthermore, at the same time this is happening, Caylee is just getting more work. You're more mobile now. You can talk at 3. You have opinions. Boy, do 3-year-olds have opinions. They eat more. They want to pick out their own clothes. They stay up longer. They don't sleep all the time like newborns do. And they have, strong desires that you can't just tell them to do what you want them to do. If they don't feel like watching that show, they won't watch that show. And so it's very difficult if you don't have the patience to deal with a 3-year-old. And Casey, while she's very good at lying and lies all the time, can kind of only hold it together for so long, as we can tell. She ultimately, when she's caught and cornered with a lie, she just gives it up, right? I mean, she's completely there's no shame whatsoever when she's caught, but she does kind of throw up her hands, kind of like at Universal Studios when the cops followed her around looking for her office. She's like, yep, you caught me. And in some ways, it feels like this is what was happening with Caylee. More and more, she's getting frustrated, and eventually she's just like, I just don't want to do this anymore.
Alice, it's summer, and you know what that means. It's time to break out the grill, and you can add some power players to your grilling lineup with ButcherBox. ButcherBox is the subscription service that delivers high-quality meat and seafood right to your doorstep. Choose from a carefully curated selection of 100% grass-fed beef, free-range organic chicken, wild-caught seafood, and more. Alice, it was just 4th of July, and we decided we wanted to break out the grill, and we had some ribs from ButcherBox, and we put the grill on the lowest setting, and we smoked those things for a few hours, and they were absolutely delicious. And that's what you can expect from ButcherBox. It's like having a butcher in your freezer.
Brett, having ButcherBox is just so convenient because every month ButcherBox ships a curated selection of high-quality meats right to your home, free shipping for the continental U.S. This meat has no antibiotics or added hormones, and it's packed fresh and shipped frozen for convenience so you can save time on your next grocery store trip. So customize your own box and go with one of theirs. Either way, you get exactly what you want, and it's incredibly high-quality meat. It's delicious and 100% grass-fed beef, free-range organic chicken, pork raised crate-free, and wild-caught seafood. And it's at an unbeatable value at less than $6 per meal on average. Get summer sizzling started with this special ButcherBox deal for our listeners. Free bacon for life of your membership plus $10 off. Sign up today at butcherbox.com/prosecute and use code prosecute to get 1 pack of free bacon in every box for the life of your membership plus $10 off your first order. That's butcherbox.com/prosecute and use code prosecute to claim this deal. Sinus pain, congestion, heaviness in the face and eyes, headaches, runny nose, or watery eyes, over-the-counter and prescription drugs with side effects and messy sprays are a hard way to live for many people suffering from these conditions. I'm here to tell you about a revolutionary product that will change your life forever. Introducing Tivic ClearUp, an easy-to-use, FDA-approved medical device that fits in the palm of your hand.
Created by doctors and neuroscientists, Tivic ClearUp stops suffering by using bioelectronic technology to reduce sinus pain and congestion. Simply glide Tivic ClearUp on areas of your face where you are experiencing sinus pain. I think all of you know I have been sick for what seems like forever, and Tivic ClearUp is one of the few things that gives me relief. So try Tivic ClearUp today with a 60-day risk-free trial. Go to tivichealth.com, that's TIVIC health.com, and enter promo code prosecutors22 to receive $20 off plus free shipping on your ClearUp device. Tivic ClearUp works when nothing else can. The Prosecutors is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Let's face it, sometimes multitasking can be overwhelming. Like when your favorite podcast is playing, the person next to you is talking, and your car fan is blasting, all while you're trying to find the perfect parking spot. But then again, sometimes multitasking is easy, like quoting with Progressive Insurance. They do the hard work of comparing rates so you can find a great rate that works for you, even if it's not with them. Give their nifty comparison tool a try, and you might just find the rate and coverage you deserve is easy.
All you need to do is visit Progressive's website to get a quote with all the coverages you want, like comprehensive and collision coverage or personal injury protection. Then you'll see Progressive's direct rate, and their tool will provide options from other companies, all lined up and ready to compare, so it's simple to choose the rate and coverages you like. Press play on comparing auto rates. Quote at Progressive.com to join the over 27 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
Alice, and now I want to talk about one of our favorite sponsors, and I truly mean that, HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. You can skip the trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. You choose from 55 weekly options featuring pre-portioned, high-quality ingredients picked at peak ripeness. HelloFresh delivers fresh, quality produce from the farm to your door in less than a week, so you can savor summer flavors right from your home. Select meals from the Taste of Summer series that are sure to make everyone's new favorite list, like the Old Bay shrimp and sausage boil and family-styled grilled steak lettuce wraps.
Brett, this weekend it was storming, huge summer thunderstorms, and I really didn't want to leave the house to go grocery shopping or even to pick up takeout. Lucky for me, I had the pork taquito HelloFresh package in my fridge, and I was able to cook it with my boys in under 30 minutes, and everyone was so happy with the results. It was delicious, and there were just no leftovers because everyone gobbled it up. And now Green Chef and Every Plate is owned by HelloFresh, and with a wider array of meal plans to choose from, there's something for everyone. I love switching between the brands, and now you all can enjoy both brands at a discount on us. So go to HelloFresh.com/TP16 and use code TP16 for 16 free meals across 7 boxes and 3 free gifts. That's HelloFresh.com/TP16 and use code TP16 for 16 free meals across 7 boxes and 3 free gifts. And find out for yourself why HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit. Talked about what Casey was like as a mother when we knew Caylee was alive. But what about her behavior after Caylee's disappearance was discovered? If you're into behavioral analysis, Casey Anthony is a gold mine. You've probably seen the videos of Casey's interviews with the police or her jailhouse conversations with her parents, and you will believe that she is absolutely and 100% guilty of killing her daughter. She shows no concern at all for her daughter. She's not anxious to find Caylee, and in fact, most of her statements are about how this circumstance has affected her. It's all about Casey, not about Caylee. If you want the definition of narcissistic personality disorder, just watch a video of Casey Anthony around the time that the police discover Caylee is missing. Of course, we've had this conversation before about behavioral analysis and how fraught it can be, because Casey's defenders will tell you that these videos are taken out of context and that the full videos, if watched in their entirety, reveal Casey in a softer light. But even if this is true, it's hard to discount just how self-centered Casey appears in the videos we do see, and they are consistent with her other behavior that we know of before Caylee goes missing, during the time that law enforcement's looking for Caylee, and also when she's on trial.
And if you follow this case, you've seen these videos. If you've seen any of the documentaries on this case, of which there's some good ones, you've seen these videos. Casey's in jail. She's talking to her parents on one of those sort of jailhouse phones. There's video of it. And she is absolutely focused on herself. There's no, where's Caylee? It's all, what about me? What I'm going through. This is terrible. These are snippets of long conversations. It certainly is the case that there's more conversation. It kind of reminds me of the Darlie Routier case, where some people say, oh, the video was taken out of context because she was only spraying silly string on the graves and jumping around like a crazy person a few minutes out of that video. And before that, she was sad. Okay, fine. Show the whole video. Same thing here. I'm sure there's other parts of the video where she looks better. This is where I think you're seeing the real her. I have no doubt that there are times where she doesn't appear to be as self-centered as she is. But I think when you see her sort of break into a rage at her parents because nobody's worrying about poor Casey, that's when you see the real her. But look, we have said this 1,000 times, different strokes for different folks. People deal with stress in different ways. And maybe that's just the way she deals with stress. Maybe when there's stress, she just sort of goes into herself and becomes absolutely selfish. Maybe partying and all this other stuff is the way that she deals with stress. But I think there is a problem with this approach. Caylee's not just missing, and Casey knows that. Even if you accept the defense theory, which we're going to talk about a lot, probably not in this episode, but in a few episodes, most of you know that the defense's eventual theory is that Casey absolutely knew that Caylee was dead at the time these videos were taken. In fact, her father had helped her cover up Caylee's death after she accidentally drowned in the family pool. That's the defense theory. So everything that she does, everything that she says, how she acts, it all happens with her firmly in the knowledge that her daughter is dead. At best, this makes her George on Seinfeld. Those of y'all who remember Seinfeld may remember when George was going to get married, and he bought these really cheap envelopes that you had to lick the envelopes, and his fiancée was putting all the invitations in the envelopes, and eventually she'd licked so many that she actually died. She was poisoned by some chemical that was in the glue on the envelopes, and she died. And George, who really didn't want to get married, was happy about this. He was kind of excited about the fact that now he didn't have to get married because his fiancée died. And probably one of the less tasteful Seinfeld couple of episodes, but nevertheless, that was George. George is basically a psychopath, right? And all he sees is, yay, I don't have to worry about my fiancée anymore. Maybe that's Casey. Maybe Casey was burdened by Caylee, and Caylee's death was accidental, and Casey was relieved. That is a possibility. It is a possibility and something that looms over this entire case and everything you think about this case. It is a possibility that this was an accident and Casey was happy about it.
And it's just so hard to know with someone like Casey because we've said that she is just the model narcissistic personality disorder. So she can't help but see everything through the lens of her in the center of the universe. So it may sound like just unimaginable for most of us listening. If you know your daughter's dead, even if you had nothing to do with it, how can you act in a way that is all about you? But that is kind of the definition of narcissism. You can't help but see everything through one lens. Narcissism doesn't just mean loving yourself. It means quite literally kind of like a child. You can't help but see the world through your eyes and your eyes only. It's impossible to kind of step out of yourself and empathize, or even to think of how anything affects anyone other than you. And that's what makes it so difficult, because she would act like that based on kind of her personality, whether she was a murderer or not, it seems.
Right. And that's exactly the problem. In a lot of cases, you try and look at behavior to determine whether or not someone's a murderer. But with Casey, it is not clear to me that her behavior would be any different if she murdered her daughter in premeditation in cold blood, or if she found her daughter dead in the pool. And I know that is really difficult for people to understand. And I think it's one reason that some people are just so certain that Casey is guilty of murder, because they can't imagine any human being acting the way she acted after her daughter went missing, when Casey knew that she was dead, whether she was involved or not. They can't imagine it. And since she acted that way, she must be a murderer. And I feel the pull of that as well, because it's hard for me to imagine it. But then I look at Casey and I realize that we are dealing here with a terrible human being, a person who is so corrupt down to the core of their being, just an awful, horrible person. That is Casey. And that's who she is, whether she killed her daughter or not. The kind of person who could be happy about her daughter's death. That's who she is. And if you know, we talked about her friends and how they said that she was a great mother. They also said that after Caylee went missing, it was like Casey was living her best life. She's over at her boyfriend's apartment. She's cooking for them. She's happy. She's going out, partying, all this other stuff. She is living the sort of early 20s, college age lifestyle that she never got to have because she had her daughter. And at some point, when the police are looking through all of Casey's stuff, they find a diary. And the entry in this diary is really interesting. I'm going to read it to you. The entry is from June 21st. Now, assuming that this is June 21st, 2008, that is only 5 days after Caylee is last seen alive. And here's what the diary entry says. I have no regrets, just a bit worried. I just want for everything to work out okay. I completely trust my own judgment and know that I made the right decision. I just hope that the end justifies the means. I just want to know what the future will hold for me. I guess I will soon see. This is the happiest that I have been in a very long time. I hope that my happiness will continue to grow. I've made new friends that I really like. I've surrounded myself with good people. I am finally happy. Let's just hope that it doesn't change. If that is written in 2008, that is a chilling confession to murder. That is Casey saying, I'm glad I did it. It was the right decision. Here's the thing, though. The defense points out that on the page of the diary facing this entry, 03 is written. And their argument was that this was actually written in 2003, not 2008. It's unclear. I have read people say that the book, the sort of little notebook that she used to write this, wasn't made in 2003, but I haven't seen anything definitive on that. It's one of those things that's pretty interesting. If it was written in 2003, that's about 2 years before Caylee is born. So we're talking when Casey is 16 or 17. Could be some weird high school thing happened, and that's what she's referring to here. But I will say that diary entry fits so perfectly with how Casey was living her life after her daughter disappeared that I don't know that it's from 2008, but it sure seems like it.
And it's just so hard. It's so vague. We can obviously see how it fits into this situation, but also if you change it into kind of like a preteen, a lot of hormones, a lot of angst sort of time period for any teenage girl, it could also fit too. So I think that's different. I think it's difficult to know exactly what it is.
Well, I think whatever it is, whether this is part of the murder or not, I think one thing that is very clear and cannot be denied is that whatever happened to Caylee has something to do with Casey and her relationship with her parents, and in particular, her mother, Cindy.
Cindy did have a MySpace, and, we had talked about when Casey also had her own MySpace page, and MySpace, for those of you who are too young to know, is really like your own personal online diary, journal, website. It's whatever you want it to be. You can make posts, music, backgrounds for it to reflect you. And Cindy had one of these MySpace pages, and on July 3rd, 2008, which is 12 days before she found out that Caylee was missing, Cindy made the following post on MySpace. She came into my life unexpectedly, just as she has left me. This precious little angel from above gave me strength and unconditional love. Now she is gone, and I don't know why. All I am guilty of is loving her and providing her a safe home. Jealousy has taken her away. Jealousy from the one person that should be thankful for all of the love and support given to her. A mother's love is deep. However, there are limits when one is betrayed by the one she loved and trusted the most. A daughter comes to her mother for support when she is pregnant. The mother says without hesitation it will be okay, and it was. But then the lies and betrayal began. First it seemed harmless. Love is blind. A mother will look for the good in her child and give them a chance to change. This mother gave chance after chance for her daughter to change. But instead, more lies, more betrayal. What does the mother get for giving her daughter all of these chances? A broken heart. The daughter who stole money, lots of money, leaves without warning and does not tell her mother, now speak to the baby, that her mother raised, fed, clothed, sheltered, paid her medical bills, etc. Instead, tells her friends that her mother is controlling her life and she needs her space. No money, no future. Where did she go? Who is now watching out for the little angel? Ooh. So remember, all of that was written by Cindy 12 days before she made that call to the police, claiming that she just found out her granddaughter Caylee is missing.
Yeah, this is July 3rd, and George will later say that since Caylee had been born, they had not gone more than a couple days without seeing her. It was very unusual for them not to see her, and now Casey... Remember, Cindy and Casey had that big fight on June 15th. The next day, Casey takes Caylee. This is as far as Cindy knows. Casey takes Caylee and never comes back. And now it's been, 16, 17 days since they've seen her, which is a lot longer than normal. They called multiple times. They're trying to get to see her. Casey's making up more and more elaborate lies. At some point, she says that she's been out of town, but she's coming back into town. Of course, Cindy wants to see Caylee. Well, then Casey says that Zanny, has been in a car accident, and it's so bad that she's in the hospital. So they've sent Caylee away, and Casey is now staying in the hospital at Zanny's bedside. I mean, those are the kind of things that Casey's saying to her mother to try and push off seeing Caylee. Where is Caylee? Trying to push that off. But by this point, July 3rd, her mother is starting to feel that she is just keeping her away from her. And you see so much in this paragraph about the dynamic between these two people. Cindy, who feels as though she has a right to this child because of all the support that she's given her, the money that she's spent, the fact that she's always had a roof over her head. And you guys out there, you've all seen this. This might have happened in your own family, where you have a family like the Anthonys, sort of a solid middle-class family or whatever, and one of their children has a child. They're raising them by themselves. Maybe they're not quite living like an adult. They're not really taking responsibility. And the grandparents gradually start to exercise more and more control over the child. And the child becomes a pawn in a game between their child, who can't afford to move out, doesn't have the resources to stand on their own 2 feet, but is very resentful of the fact that the grandparents are using the fact that they need them to tell them what to do and tell them how to raise their child, and maybe even threaten to take their child away from them. You've all seen that. That is the situation here. And you can see this sort of complex situation that is roiling underneath this entire story, and this relationship between Cindy and Casey is important. Now, we talked about that diary entry before. We don't know exactly when it was written, but what we do know is that on July 7th, just a couple days after this post, this is so mature the way they're handling this, by the way, Cindy posting on MySpace. Now, Casey is going to post on MySpace, which can only be described as a response to Cindy. On July 8th, 2008, Casey made the following post where she recounts what she describes as words of wisdom. So here they are. Words of wisdom from Casey Anthony for all of you who needed your moment of zen today. On the worst of days, remember the words spoken. Trust no one, only yourself. With great power comes great consequence. What is given can be taken away. Everyone lies. Everyone dies. Life will never be easy. On the worst of days, remember the words spoken. Hold your head high. Smile. Laugh. Love unconditionally. Tomorrow is a brand new day.
Yeah, these are so interesting because they clearly seem to be talking to each other, but instead of having a normal family conversation where you speak to face, they're posting these for the entire world to see. And, something that really jumps out at me is that Casey gets wrong kind of the adage, with great power comes great responsibility rather than great consequence, as in, that's just an interesting thing there because, as we've said, her greatest asset and kind of her major chip in her life with her parents is her daughter Caylee. Like we've already talked about, she has nothing to her name, right? The car she drives is not under her own name. She has no job, even though she has been lying and says she has a job. So she has no financial independence. She has no physical independence. She lives in her parents' home. And the one thing she can kind of assert some control over and do it in a way that can deeply hurt Cindy, as we see in Cindy's July 3rd MySpace post, is her daughter by, taking away something that her mother loves.
And just to note, Casey knows that her daughter is dead by now. There's no question about that. Like I said, we can debate that diary entry until the end of time. When this happens, Casey is fully aware that her daughter is dead, and this is what she's writing. And I think Alice is right. I mean, I think there's a lot in here that tells a lot. With great power comes great consequences. An interesting thing that everyone dies. Life will never be easy. I mean, I think I think when Cindy read this, I think she would have gotten a different message than we do. So we're reading this not knowing Caylee at all. Cindy knew her very well. I think she wrote this obviously for Cindy, knowing that Cindy would read it. I think Cindy probably read more into this than even we are. But it is certainly the case that at this point, both Cindy knows and believes that Casey's using Caylee as leverage. She's a little off on that because that's not actually what's happening, but it certainly could be, and it shows that sort of dynamic between the mother and the daughter. And you got to wonder how much did that dynamic and everything that was happening around the time of Caylee's disappearance, how much of that led to her death.
After these MySpace posts, we know that eventually Cindy Anthony calls 911. You probably all have heard the call where she says there's, where she's crying and saying that her granddaughter is missing. But Cindy Anthony actually makes 3 calls. The first call, she tells the dispatcher that she wants her daughter arrested for grand theft. She says that Caylee has stolen money and her vehicle. This call has nothing to do with Caylee, really, except it's a window into the situation between Caylee and Cindy at the time. Their relationship is obviously strained to the point that Cindy is calling the police on her daughter. It's like she's reached the end of her rope. She doesn't know what to do. Remember that July 3rd post, she's talking about Caylee stealing money from her. But usually when there are family dynamics like this, you work it out without inserting law enforcement, but not so here. And things get interesting when the dispatcher transfers her to the proper district. While this transfer is ongoing, the call is still being recorded. During this time, Cindy says to Caylee, "'Cause my next thing will be down to child thing and we'll have a court order to get her." This, of course, refers to Caylee. She continues, "If that's the way you want to play, we'll do it and you'll never." Presumably, Cindy is going to say, "See her again." But Caylee interrupts and says, "That's not the way I want to play." Cindy says, "Well, then you have." Caylee interrupts and says, "I need one more day." Cindy says, "No, I'm not giving you another day. I've given you a month." The call is cut off at this point, and Cindy calls 911 again. This time, she says she needs Caylee arrested and mentions that there is a missing child. Presumably, Caylee has admitted to her during the interim between the first and second call that she doesn't actually know where Caylee is. This is fascinating. The first call, like we said, is really in the middle of a fight that we don't know what it's about, but Caylee is a pawn within it. She is a pawn either to gain control over Caylee or for Caylee to get what she wants from Cindy. And we know that Caylee regularly steals from her parents. So I don't think this is really just about stolen money or stolen things because of the kind of accidental catching of the call while her call is being transferred in between. That Cindy seems to think that Caylee is alive at this point, and she's talking about getting court orders to presumably get custody over Caylee because she hasn't seen Caylee in so long. But Casey's kind of trying to talk her down, and then we only catch snippets of this conversation, but we can kind of read between the lines based on what's happening.
And this is such an interesting look into this relationship because it's one of the few times where you see Cindy and Caylee. There's no one to put on for. They're not in front of friends. They're not in court. They're not in front of cameras. It's just the two of them. They don't think anyone's listening, talking. We're going to put all 3 calls online. There's a YouTube video where a user put them all 3 together. You can listen to this if you want to, and you'll hear what Alice described. But it's a very interesting window into this because you can bet this was not an unusual thing for Cindy to bring up Caylee and to threaten to take Caylee away from Caylee and that Caylee would never see her daughter again.
And it also shows that Cindy definitely, even though she supports her daughter in public, she has concerns about Casey's ability to take care of Caylee because these kind of threats don't come out of nowhere. Obviously, these this family dynamic is probably outside of the norm, but it does show kind of Cindy's concern over Casey's ability to mother. This is not the first time Cindy has threatened to take Caylee, and this is very interesting because it kind of gives you a view into this dynamic that's going on. Threatening to take someone's daughter away is not really a threat that is typically thrown around lightly, and for it to be done on a regular basis says something about the way that they view Caylee, that she is certainly a pawn in this relationship. In fact, Cindy's brother knew of at least 3 other times that Cindy has said she would like to take Caylee. She'd also told her therapist and her financial planner about her plans to have Caylee for herself. We mentioned earlier the fight that Casey and Cindy had the night before Caylee went missing. The one that was so bad that they had to be separated physically. They'd later deny this fight, but neighbors said they fought so much and so often and so loud that their fights had become part of the neighborhood routine. And those neighbors heard fighting that night, June 15th. It's likely that the subject of Caylee was often a part of these fights, and it almost certainly was the cause of the fight that night. Cindy had spoken to her mother that day, and she had told her she was going to seek to have custody of Caylee. Cindy's mother would later say that she was on a mission when she left that conversation. Although Lee and Cindy and George would later deny the seriousness of the fight, he confided in a friend that this was the worst fight they'd ever had. Cindy told Casey that she knew she was lying about working when she'd left Caylee with her, and that in fact, Casey had been partying. Cindy was kicking Casey out of the house, but Caylee would not be going with her.
To me, this is the case. We're 4 episodes into this. We may do 3 or 4 more, so maybe this is sort of a spoiler. But to me, this is the moment. This is the most important thing that happens in this entire thing. This fight between Cindy and Casey, a fight where Cindy is described by some as choking Casey, a fight where Cindy is telling Casey, I'm going to take your daughter away from you and kick you out. That's a big deal. I mean, that is a huge deal. And what happens the next day? Caylee disappears and most likely dies. It could just be a coincidence. That just happened to be the day that Caylee decided to crawl into the pool and drown accidentally. That's a possibility. But when you think about everything that's going on here, all this wrapped up in this fight, this knockdown, drag-out fight on the day before Caylee disappears, and you think about what must be going through Casey's head, to me, this is it right here.
Yeah, Brett. I mean, this is just so sad to see the role Caylee kind of plays in all these fights without doing anything wrong. She's just a child. She's not part of these fights, but it's clearly an explosive environment with the neighbors saying that they constantly scream, at each other so loudly that you can hear it down the street. But even so, even though they are a family that yells, and that could be your family dynamic, and that's okay, but Lee, tells a friend that of all the fights, and they are known to have volatile fights, this is the worst one yet. And it's bad because we have outside confirmation that a fight did happen, but yet they are all denying it. Why deny a fight if your kind of MO as a family is to have these loud fights? That could just be the way you communicate with each other. But there's no need to lie about it because they probably don't deny the fact that they regularly yell at each other. So why lie about this night? It's because I think they all knew what happened that night was kind of the trigger for whatever came next for Caylee that ended in her death. And it's really hard to learn about this kind of piecing together because the people who were there, the firsthand witnesses, the people who actually know what happened, refuse to say what actually happened that night.
And I'm sure we'll come back to this. We absolutely will. But you can only imagine what's going through Casey's mind at this time. Her mother's saying she's going to kick her out. She's going to keep the child. Where does Casey go if that happens? She going to go live with her boyfriend? Casey's not stupid. She's been around the block a lot. She knows that relationship isn't going to last. There's going to come a day when Her boyfriend is tired of her, she's tired of him, and that's not going to happen. And she's going to need to find a place. Moreover, we talked about Casey's lies a lot and how, she is a ticking time bomb on everything she does because her lies have a time limit. They can only go so long before finally they hit zero and everything blows up. Some of the lies, it's shorter than others. The lie about her father having a stroke has a pretty short half-life, as it were. She has been pulling this lie that she's going to work and leaving Caylee with Cindy and Zanny for over 2 years. For over 2 years, she's been talking about Zanny, this Zanny person who doesn't even exist, who her parents have never met. 2 years. Zanny's been keeping Caylee, supposedly. She's leaving Caylee with Cindy while she goes to party, but what does she do? She posts pictures on her MySpace page of her partying. And at some point, Cindy looks at the pictures and realizes these are all days when I kept Caylee because you were supposed to be working late. And in fact, you were partying the whole time. And you got to think, Cindy's probably starting to think she doesn't even have a job. And she knows that she was stealing money from her grandmother. She knows that she was stealing money from the family, that money would just disappear. At some point, Cindy actually thought it was George, thought George was back to his gambling ways and was spending all the money. And George is like, I don't know what you're talking about. Because it was Casey taking the money. And now this is all finally dawning on Cindy. And Casey's lie, the biggest lie that she's been telling is coming to an end. She has to do something. She has to do something because the lie has run out. It's like when they were walking around Universal Studios. At some point, they came to a door at the end of the hallway that was locked. There was nowhere else to go. At that point, Casey just had to admit it's all a lie. And she's in that situation here. What is she going to do? How is she going to react? Like I said, we're going to talk about this some more. We'll come back to it. Let's talk about the third call. So there are 3 calls total. In the third call, Cindy is on the verge of hysterical. Let's listen to that call so you can hear exactly what Cindy says in what may be one of the few honest moments we have from Cindy in this entire case.
911, what's your emergency? I called a little bit ago, the deputy sheriff saying I found out my granddaughter has been taken. She has been missing for a month. Her mother finally admitted that she's been missing.
Okay, what is
here now?
Okay, what is the address that you're calling from?
We're talking about a 3-year-old little girl. My daughter finally admitted that the baby's in the store. I need to find her.
Your daughter admitted that the baby is where?
But the babysitter took her a month ago that my daughter's been looking for. I told you my daughter was missing for a month. I just found her today, but I can't find my granddaughter. And she just admitted to me that she's been trying to find her herself. There's something wrong. I found my daughter's car today, and it smells like there's been a dead body in the damn car.
Okay, what is the 3-year-old's name?
Caylee, Caylee, Anthony.
Caylee Anthony?
Yes.
Okay, is she white, black, or Hispanic?
She's white.
How long has she been missing for?
I have not seen her since the 7th of June.
What is her date of birth?
8/9/2000. Oh God, she's 3. She's 2005. George Caylee's missing. Caylee's missing. Casey says Danny took her a month ago. She's been missing for a month.
Okay, I understand. Can you calm down for me for just a minute and I need to know what's going on, okay? I'm gonna try and talk. Is your daughter there?
I'm on the phone with them.
Is your daughter there?
Yes.
Can I speak with her? Do you mind if I speak with her? Thank you.
I called them 2 hours ago. They haven't gotten here. She finally admitted to Danny took her a month ago.
Ma'am.
Okay, Danny Sheriff's Department. They want to talk to you. Answer the question. Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
Hi. What can you tell me what's going on a little bit?
I'm sorry?
Can you tell me a little bit what's going on?
My daughter's been missing for the last 31 days.
And you know who has her?
I know who has her. I've tried to contact her. I actually received a phone call today, now from a number that is no longer in service. I did get to speak to my daughter for about a minute.
Okay, did you guys call and report a vehicle stolen?
Yes, my mom did.
Okay, so there's been a vehicle stolen too?
No, this was my vehicle.
What vehicle was stolen?
It's a 98 Pontiac Sunfire.
Okay, I have deputies on the way to you right now for that. So now your 3-year-old, okay, your 3-year-old daughter is missing. Caylee Anthony.
Yes.
White female.
Anthony. Yes, white female.
3 years old, 8/9/2005 is her date of birth?
Yes.
And you last saw her a month ago?
31 days. From 31 days.
Who has her? Do you have a name?
Her name is Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez.
Who is that? Babysitter?
She's been my nanny for about 1.5 years, almost 2 years.
Why are you calling now? Why didn't you call 31 days ago?
I've been looking for her and have gone through other resources to try to find her, which was stupid.
Okay. Can you give me the name of the nanny again? Like spell it out for me?
Zenaida, Zenaida.
Last name? Fernandez?
Hyphen Gonzalez. I think the officers are here.
The officers are there?
Yes.
Okay, hold on a second. Don't hang up with me yet. I need you... Okay.
As we've said before, try and interpret 911 calls at your own peril, but it's hard to listen to Cindy and then Casey on the phone and not draw some conclusions. First, when the 911 operator asked to speak with her, Casey says she has nothing to talk to the 911 operator about. That is unusual. If her daughter were actually missing, what mother wouldn't want to talk to the police about it? And when she gets on the phone, she seems utterly put out about having to even talk to the police about this. During the call, she tells the operator about speaking to Caylee. That day, this obviously is a lie. Caylee is dead. And not only does she tell her about speaking, but she will later give details about the things they said. And we know, of course, that Casey knew that. There was no question in Casey's mind that Caylee was dead when she was telling the operator that. Then Casey hangs up on the operator despite being told not to do so. Now look, the officers are there, so maybe we can cut her some slack on this. We've talked about this before. A lot of times, you get done with the operator, you hang up on them. Unfortunately, the operator is probably the best interrogator she's going to face for a while, so it's unfortunate that she didn't talk to her longer, and it certainly is understandable why Casey, faced with that interrogator, would want to get off the phone as soon as possible. We've talked about a lot of behavior today. We've looked at a lot of things Casey said and wrote. What does it all mean? I leave that to you to judge for yourself. Behavior is tough. It can mean a lot of different things because, as we've said a million times, different people react differently to different stimuli. And maybe that's Casey. But when you look at all of this together, I think it starts to paint a picture.
Yeah, Brett, we're getting to see a lot. We're getting these tiny glimpses of who Casey is when she thinks no one is watching and when she's not putting on a show for other people, and also with Cindy, because this story involves much more than just Casey. This is a family affair, unfortunately, and it is very important. We spent so much time talking about the dynamics with Cindy and George and even Lee, because I think it's going to be hard to know what the truth is of what exactly happened to Caylee, but it lies somewhere within kind of the depths of this family secret.
We're going to wrap it up for today with this discussion of Casey's psychology. Next week, we're going to talk about the hard evidence. We're going to talk about the actual evidence in the case that was produced, what it says, what it proves. And then, probably not next week, but eventually, we're going to talk about theories. What exactly happened in this case? Was it an accident? Was it murder? Was it something else entirely. And what did the jury do, and what should they have done? As Alice said, we've already started to get feedback on this case. I'm sure you guys have a ton more things you want to talk about. Shoot us an email at prosecutorspod@gmail.com, at prosecutorspod for all your social media. I hope you guys are listening to Prosecutors Legal Briefs. Our other show comes out every Friday. Do subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, hello, and hello to all our patrons who are getting this episode early and ad-free. Well, Alice, is there anything else you want to add before we sign off?
No, but man, it was ambitious of you to say 6. We'll see how we do. But there's just, like you said, I think we could talk forever about all the lies that Casey has told, and we've only touched some of them. There's so much more to come.
That's absolutely true. Okay, guys. Well, it's been a pleasure as always, and we will see you again next week where we will continue our discussion of the Casey Anthony case. But until then, I'm Brett.
And I'm Alice.
And we are the Prosecutors.
Spouses who are saying that they actually listen to legal briefs and they like it.
Actually, they said that was from a friend.
No, I believe my husband said big fan here. I'm going to take that as him complimenting me.
Well, I think your husband does listen to it.
He actually does. He loves the theme music to legal briefs like so much. As do I, honestly.
It's pretty good.
It's a good jam.
I mean,
it's a good jam.
It's a banger.
Yes.
I rock out to it. Kids love it. Kids love it. They love it too. I mean, I have a special place in my heart for the first one.
The first one is awesome. It's kind of like Maverick is to you know?
I like that. Yeah. Nice. Love that.
I thought it was really
this?
bold of you, by the way, to go ahead
Bold.
and cap us at 6 episodes.
Yeah, that was just a guess. I was like, I gotta put a number down here.
When I saw the number, I was like, oh, are we committing
6.
ourselves to 6?
We're committing ourselves to at least 6, which I think is an easy commitment.
Oh, no.
Since we've already done 3.
I more thought that 6 was ambitious to do it in 6.
Yeah.
That's what I meant.
All this month, stream the funniest films for free on Pluto TV. Watch comedy classics like Anchorman, The Legend of Ron Burgundy, and Mean Girls. Or drop in for a Tyler Perry marathon with a Medea family funeral and Medea's witness protection. Pluto TV also has hundreds of channels and thousands of movies and TV shows like Get Shorty, Be Cool, Key and Peele, Comedy in Color, and more. And no contracts, no subscriptions, no fees, no joke. So download the Pluto TV app on your favorite streaming device and start laughing today. Pluto TV, drop in, watch free.